And so we had that all in relationship to the 3D model that we had created.
And when you say trajectory rod, is this the
That's
white,
representing the trajectory rod, yes, sir.
the white, I guess, stick in the in State Exhibit 288?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And all of your, I guess, images that's being depicted on the screen of the seats, is that created from your scans?
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
Now, there are two positions. So if we stop it here.
Yes, sir.
So if you stop it, we have two positions for the weapon, again, controlled by or dictated by Mr. Knox. He wanted one with the weapon on his lap, and then the second position is if the weapon was close to his right hip.
When you say second position, is that what is
Right there.
depicted in this part of the
Yes, sir.
video? And is the only thing that's different in this second half of the video the position of the firearm?
That's correct, and the hand holding it.
So this is the bag that I tested for gunshot primer residue, and as you can see, there are some defects present in it.
The results of my testing were that the examination of the adhesive stubs used to sample the bag revealed more than 5 particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue.
Use it every day.
All right, folks. Welcome back. I'm Vinny Politan. Welcome to Late Feed Law. And we are back and running, day 15 of the Tex McIver trial. Tex McIver on trial for murdering his wife. He shot and killed her. The question was it an accident? Was it murder? Another big day in the courtroom today to help me go through everything on my legal dream team. Meg Strickler is here, great criminal defense attorney, and Randy Kessler is a professor over at Emory Law School and a great trial lawyer as well. A lot of things happened today, and it was interesting, but I want to start not with testimony, but I want to start with who was there today in the gallery. Danny Joe.
That was interesting to see.
The star witness, the driver of the car, Diane's great friend, was there watching the trial today. What do you think of that?
I think this is a bonus point for the prosecution because once witnesses testified, they can come and watch. They're not sequestered.
They usually
longer.
don't, though.
They never do.
But
And usually they're
right.
admonished to not go out there and watch. It's showing the wrong,
no.
sending the
But this-
wrong message.
This is her whole life, and she's, this is going to affect her. The rest of her life, she's going to be known as the person that was driving that car. So for her to go there, and look, if she really cares about Tex, she also wants to see what's going to happen to him, and she might be there as a sign of support for him. I think it could go either way.
Maybe the masseuse is back there too. Did we look?
Oh, I did not check to see if the masseuse with the boots was in the courtroom.
Aren't you a defense
But
lawyer?
folks, want to know what you think. What do you think about Danny Joe being in court today? I'm reading all your comments. Let's see who's watching tonight. We've got, of course, LaTonia's here, Catherine and Stacy and Tony and Diane and Jan and Brian and Lauren and Edna and Claudia, Sarah, Peter, Renee, all here tonight. Let me know, first of all, what do you think of Danny Joe actually being in the courtroom and showing up? And not just showing up, but when Bill Crane, the spokesperson for Tex McIver, was testifying, he's a former reporter, political expert, works in television, public relations, actually acknowledged her and waved to her from the witness stand today. What does the jury do with that? What does the jury, you think about Danny Joe being in the courtroom and getting waved to by today's witness?
I think that's more of a reflection on the witness. I mean, the average witness, if I was one of us are witnesses, we're lawyers, we know the decorum and what you're supposed to do, but the average witness would probably come in and say, if I see somebody I know, I guess it's okay to wave. He should have known. I mean, he's in PR, he's all about perceptions. You would think he's there about one thing, and that's testifying. So it was really, it probably shook his credibility, if anything.
And it's what he wanted to worry about because he's quoted as saying, I didn't want my credibility ruined. I wanted to make sure I had said this statement several times about Black Lives Matter. I'm not going to retract it. But yet he's going to Danny Joe. Very bizarre.
Or should he ignore? That's one you can weave both ways too. I mean, you see somebody you know.
Yeah, but it's very, not a comfortable environment, the courtroom. Most witnesses walk in and they're very nervous and anxious, and they usually just kind of walk in and don't acknowledge anybody, give eye contact to anybody.
Right, I've tried cases where I see people and they wink at me or they say hi to me, and then 3 days later they say, I saw you in court. And I say, really?
Right,
I have
you
no
don't pay
clue
attention.
who's in the back room.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Rena says something is off with Danny Joe. Sarah says Danny Joe wanting attention that hurts Tex. And Laura's saying, I still don't know whose side she's on.
Yeah, it's confusing. By her showing up, it just throws a monkey wrench into what we think one way or the other. But it really would be nice to know what's going on in her brain, period.
I respect that she's there. She's seeing it for herself. She could watch your show. She could read it, had it all over the papers. But she wants to see it, so to speak, from the horse's mouth and from the prism that the jury sees it in. Because she's going to have to second guess this jury decision. She's going to have to wonder, were they right or were they wrong? It's one thing to read about it, to hear about it, to see it. But when you're there and you see and you can sense and smell and feel and taste the courtroom environment, then you really know what it's like. And she's been through it already. And it's sort of like breathing easy. You get off the high dive and you jump into the water. It's a lot easier to watch somebody else do it once you've already done it.
And she can watch the rest of it.
Beth says, hello, Vinny. I loved her being there. Shows that she cares. Does it help her credibility? Does it do anything to bolster and make the jury want to believe everything she said?
No, because none of this does make sense. I think it still helps the prosecution on this case because she does love Diane. That part is obvious.
That's clear.
That's clear. So that part, her being there is fine. She doesn't love Tex.
I disagree with you, Meg. I think her being there means that she is more believable because if you're in the witness stand and you're lying, you want to get out of there and be nowhere around because you don't want anyone to catch something you said wrong, or maybe there's a chance they'll call you back and ask you again to answer the same questions. She was very comfortable in her skin. She's comfortable saying, I testified, and now I'm here. I'm on full display. You can look at me, you can gauge me, you can judge me. I think it helps her credibility.
There's another interesting moment, and who was it that brought it up here? Was it Claudia? Oh yeah, Claudia was saying, what about Crane complimenting Samuel as an attorney? And I thought that was interesting. Crane is he's very comfortable speaking on the witness stand because of his background and what he does. But he was kind of going above and beyond, and telling Don Samuel what a great attorney he was. And I was like,
well, he is a legend. He is one of the preeminent lawyers, and we all highly respect
he's
him.
like, let's get to the testimony. But he's like, all right, you can compliment me, that's great, but let's get to the testimony. How about him as a witness today? Because he's great friends with Tex McIver, right? But at some point, he's the one who went public with Tex McIver's story. And the big headline, I think, from today is all about Black Lives Matter. Right? Bill Crane is the one who put that story out there, and he testified today that Tex McIver wanted him to fall on the sword and retract that story, and Bill Crane was like, no, I can't retract that. That goes to my credibility. Plus, you told me, and we went over all of this together. So, how does all that play? Do you think the jury believes Crane that Tex McIver wanted him to retract his statement about grabbing the gun because of the Black Lives Matter protests that were happening that day?
I think the whole thing plays to the defense. And this is going to sound really crazy, but the fact that the jury might think he is a little bit racist or a little bit prejudiced or a little bit biased or a little bit bigoted, that may play to him because they may say, yes, he's guilty of that, but it answers the question, why did he have the gun? Why was he afraid? They're not going to convict him, I hope, because they think he's a racist or because they think he's biased. But they might give him just the defense he needs, which is, yeah, he was unusually afraid. He should not have been afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of because Black Lives Matter or because of homeless people. Or maybe there's something to be afraid of, but you don't hold a gun, load it. But if you're really bigoted and you really think that all those people carry guns,
then it makes sense, because what you're trying to do is put yourself into Tex McIver's head. And he couldn't distinguish. And how do you think this plays, Meg? He couldn't distinguish when he was telling Bill Crane, I don't know, I saw these people walking around. I didn't know if they were carjackers, Black Lives Matter, or homeless people. I mean, those are three different sets of people.
Well, he could be just
with, I guess in Tex McIver's mind, he couldn't tell the difference between them.
Well, it sounds, when the statement is said like that, it more and more kind of helps define Tex McIver as a narcissistic, all in his own little brain, and doesn't look around. And then when he does, he's outside of his element just a little bit, going off the highway.
And he's been drinking, and
he's been drinking, and he's got these two women in the front telling him not to eat Cheez-Its and whatnot. I mean, I can see why he gets upset. But what's not making any sense is he does all this. He allegedly says this to Bill Crane. Bill Crane sounds credible there, because why? He goes ahead and spreads it out to a whole bunch of media outlets. I mean, why would you do that if it wasn't Tex McIver making the direction? It was not Bill McCrane doing that.
So what do they do now with this statement? Do you think they acknowledge the fact that he said it was either Black Lives Matter or homeless people or maybe some carjackers? I didn't know, that's why I grabbed the gun.
I think the closing is going to be similar to what I just said, which is, whatever's going on in Tex's head, he definitely wasn't clear about what the danger was, and he definitely had some reason to be concerned, whether it's because he was inappropriately afraid or legitimately afraid. It really doesn't matter. What matters is, did he have the gun because he wanted to kill his wife, or did he have the gun because he was worried about something else? This plays into...
I would spin it a little differently, where he's trying to master manipulate things. So he calls Bill Crane immediately, and as we've talked about recently, about how the fact that he calls a lawyer, he doesn't mean, it's not even a lawyer he calls for help for this part of it.
Mistake number
He's
one.
calling PR people right off the bat. And if he's not, O.J. Simpson type calling his spinners to try to figure out a way to get rid of the stabbing thing 600 times to not make that a murder, this situation is just the same. He's trying to spin a bad situation. If this was an accident, why are you calling a spinner at all?
Right, that's prosecution's closing. You're right. He
Yes.
is a lawyer. Every lawyer knows. Civil, criminal, no matter what kind of lawyer you are, you get arrested, you call a lawyer, you don't say anything else.
Yeah.
Peter has a great question. Black Lives Matter has Sunday night protests down there, and the answer would be no. And the testimony today from Crane was that it had been in the news. And what we did today is we checked our own archives here. And yeah, we ran stories, and there were protests on Saturday.
Yes.
There were protests up in Buckhead, which is the area where he lives, at the Lenox Square Mall. So here's a question. Now this becomes a little Atlanta central, but Buckhead is to the north, which is where they were going. Where they got off was not Buckhead. So why would he think the Black Lives Matter protesters who were in Buckhead at the mall during the day would be down on Edgewood Avenue?
It was all
at
spinning.
night?
He's just spinning this. He's creating a story.
He was tired, he was drinking, he was nervous, he was old. He just was scared, It's not far from Buckhead. Look, Atlanta's a big city with 6 million people in the greater metropolitan area. Buckhead,
Takes
Piedmont
15
Road,
minutes
Piedmont
always.
Road, Piedmont Road goes right
I
into
live there.
Buckhead. When you see Piedmont Road and Monroe, those streets go right into Buckhead. That is South Buckhead South. When you think of Piedmont Road, it's not wrong to think of it. Also, Piedmont Road is also downtown.
Piedmont Avenue, yes.
But if you live in Buckhead, Piedmont is a big street in the middle of Buckhead.
Let me ask you this, and this can be cut up a couple different ways. And I don't know how prosecutors are ultimately going to argue it in closing arguments, but are they going to argue that he used Black Lives Matter as an excuse to get the gun? Or did he legitimately think Black Lives Matter or carjackers or homeless people were going to attack him and he had the gun, and then he just took the opportunity at the moment that he had the gun? Now is when I'm going to shoot my wife. How do they deal with this? Because there's different ways to try to explain. Like when was the plan? I guess we get to when was the plan hatched?
Right.
According to prosecutors, when was the plan hatched?
I don't think it's as simple as a plan being hatched. I think it kind of evolved.
It could be, the Black Lives Matter thing could have been after the fact reasoning. He could have realized, I just like having the gun on my lap, and that was stupid for me to have the gun. I now have to have an excuse for why I had the gun on my lap. It might be after the fact, and it might have been a cover-up, but not a cover-up of a murder. It might have been a cover-up of, that was really stupid of me to have a gun, and I'm going to look like I'm a murderer. I've got to have an explanation. And then he came up with it. Who knows when it
This is
came up?
central to the prosecution's case. Remember that big red 6 at the beginning? This
Right.
is central because this is one of the stories that was told. It's one of 5 other stories beyond this one. Doesn't mention Black Lives Matter at all. It's just this one version, which goes to his not making any sense as to why this all happened.
So
She's dead.
let's get to the big issue there when it comes to Black Lives Matter and race. Does race have anything to do with this trial?
Boy, it's hard to say race doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's always hard to say that. And how do you get inside the minds of men and women? Depends on who the jury is. I don't know who all the people are on the jury. I don't know all their backgrounds. Some people are going to assign race-based feelings to everything. Some are going to say it has nothing to do with it. But I don't think you can say this is 100% without any racial issues.
It's been brought up, so it will be discussed in the jury room. It's
All
been
right,
brought
and
up.
So if it gets brought up, who does it help? Who does it hurt? How does it play? Because it's very confusing in this context, right?
Agreed.
I mean, he shot his wife. He didn't shoot someone. He didn't shoot an African American. So how does all this play out? And if race becomes an issue in the minds of the jurors or in the discussions with the jurors, who does it help? Who does it hurt?
I think it helps the prosecution because it just simply shows, like I just said, where it's a story that you spun early on and it crashed and burned and was not a good story to have created. And it also goes to the jerk factor, which we all kept saying jerk factor doesn't make you a murderer, but it certainly doesn't help the jury to like him.
Makes you less likable, number
Yes.
one, and number two, The problem is, it's just another one of those stories
Yes,
that's out there.
yes.
How about from your perspective?
My perspective, I think race matters only in as far as it makes people on the jury argue stronger or less. If somebody on the jury feels one way about race and somebody else on the jury feels another way, those people may be arguing very vociferously, and they may be harder arguing for their position because they don't like that other juror. I mean, race comes up in all sorts of ways in our system.
Tracy says race is definitely an issue. Sarah, I think it hurts Tex more. And by the way, the Booch is now watching.
Booch.
Booch, the Booch is here.
He eats his car.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Excellent point, Barbara. Sarah, love this lady. I think she's talking about you.
Ah,
It's
thank
gotta
you,
be.
Sarah.
All right, Brian. It's been proven over and over again that Tex lies and lies, says Cindy.
Yep.
So if he's telling all these different stories, does the defense argue that he didn't really tell different stories, or do they come up with an explanation as to why, Randy? How are they going to deal with that? Are they going to say these aren't different stories, or are they going to try to explain why there are different stories?
I like what Daryl Cohen always says, which is everything he did after the event, he's guilty of. He made stupid decisions, stupid mistakes, stupid sins, and I don't think you defend that. I just think you try to defend that, then you are caught. That's stuff that you can't defend. He did bad stuff. Does that make
So
him
you
a
acknowledge
murderer?
that the stories might be slightly different or vastly different?
I say it's not what we're here about. It's not the issue. It's a distraction. Let's focus on the facts of the case.
I think it just shows that he's master manipulator, because in normal murder cases, and none of them are normal, but as a general rule, what gets people to a jail cell is their own statements. And normally you're sitting in a room, as you see like on TV, which with the detective windows, and in this scenario, you see him with his lawyers making the statement. There's like, what, 3 different people in the room besides Tex, which already shows this is a real odd case where he's trying to manipulate the situation.
Well, let's talk about the situation at the hospital. The surgeon testified today, the surgeon who tried to save Diane's life and was unsuccessful, and described some bizarre behavior by Tex McIver when he came out and was going to sit him down, and McIver got kind of aggressive, and don't tell me what to do, boy, is what Tex McIver is telling the surgeon who was just operating on the love of his life,
Right.
his little darling. And he's getting all aggressive with him. What does that mean?
It bolsters the prosecution again. He's a jerk. I mean, that kind of shows. And I know the defense was trying to
Guilty again
argue.
of being a jerk.
Yeah, we all agree he's a jerk, but I think that
But
helps
who's
the
more likely to
prosecution.
commit murder, a nice person or a jerk?
Okay, well, does that make, if that's how we convict people of
That's
murder.
not how we convict them. No. But we're just putting it in context, right? That's like, the cheating spouse. Oh yeah, he's guilty of cheating. Well, who's more likely to get rid of their spouse? Someone who is with someone else, or someone who's faithful and in love with their little darling?
But then again,
That person's more
and
likely.
I assume next you're going to talk about how this doctor said he didn't exhibit the normal signs of grief.
Exactly.
The universal signs.
Wait, what kind of doctor is this?
Right, a
This is
surgeon.
a surgeon.
Oh, he's not a
Oh, wait,
psychologist.
and stereotypically, surgeons are not known for bedside manner. That's why they're surgeons.
However, he has said that whether it's the loved ones of someone who's been battling cancer for 5 months, or someone who was just killed in a car wreck, there are certain universal signs of grief
Okay.
that he has seen as someone who's experienced this for decades. Yet with Tex McIver, none of it. Now it's not. My real question to you is the impact on the jury.
Right.
Not you saying.
He's not an expert, but he is being seen as
Just
an
shows
expert.
Right,
his
how does the
impression.
jury perceive that testimony?
You know how the jury perceives that? If they want to believe that he's guilty, this helps them persuade themselves that he's guilty. If they want to believe he's not guilty, they're going to say, who knows how I would react if I was in that situation?
Right.
So it's going to reinforce those people that are already against text, and it's going to.
So are you telling me the defense is going to get and say, ladies and gentlemen, there is no textbook that tells you how you should act when you've had a few glasses of wine and you're sitting in the back seat and you shoot and kill your wife.
Right.
There's no textbook way on how you should react. Is that what they're going to really argue?
I don't think they're going to talk about it.
They just ignore it.
In the closing
Interesting.
argument, you have to watch, and you want to wrap your own theme here. And
So you
we're not-
avoid the weaknesses as much as possible?
Not
Wow.
necessarily, but there, as you've heard me say several times, there are quite a few weaknesses here for the defense. So it's going to be difficult to do a very passionate argument here, because what do you ignore? The 6 stories? Okay, oops. You ignore his not having universal signs of grief. Oops. You ignore he's a jerk. There's a lot to ignore here, and so they're going to have to acknowledge some of this in the closing. I'd be interested to see how it works out.
And we're getting closer, right? We're down to
Yes.
a handful of witnesses for the prosecution. The defense case is going to be much shorter. The defense case may be a gun expert,
Well, Tex isn't testifying, right?
maybe a sleep disorder expert, but I don't see Tex testifying, right?
All right. Unless the rest of the case goes really, really, really well for the prosecution and he feels desperate. And he does have an ego and he is confident. He may say to his lawyers, I'm ignoring your advice, I want to tell my story. And we've seen stranger things happen, but all things being equal.
And the bottom line is, and prosecutors have done here, like they've done a nice job to a certain extent, but I disagree with allowing all of his statements in. If I was a prosecutor, I wouldn't put him in. I would put in evidence that he was in the back seat, he shot and killed her. I'd put in evidence about the finances, but I would not try to prosecute someone with 6 inconsistent stories. Why? Because now the jury has Tex's story,
True.
and I
That's a good
haven't
point.
cross-examined him.
That's a good
I
point.
would never make that the focal point of my case. I disagreed when they did it in the George Zimmerman case, and I disagree with it here because now his whole story is in front of the jury, including there was a phone call that went in today, a jailhouse phone call that Tex McIver talking about his own will, talking about the ranch going to Austin.
Right?
All that stuff is in front of the
So he
jury
didn't-
without him getting on the witness stand, without me getting to cross-examine him live in front of the jury, which is what every prosecutor should want to force the hand of.
Right.
And that's a score for the defense, the will, that part.
So I don't think he's testifying.
If he's given them, and to be clear, what you're saying is he said immediately after the death, I want everything. I want the ranch to go to
The ranch
child.
goes to Austin.
Not to me.
Yeah.
I didn't murder her to get the ranch. I didn't murder her at all. And
Or to
that-
give it to my sons or
and-
my
and don't forget,
children or my charity.
I mean, he wasn't in jail. He wasn't being prosecuted. I mean, this is a situation that evolved, right?
No, this is a jailhouse phone call.
Oh, this was in the jail.
Yes.
Okay.
Jailhouse phone call.
Okay.
They're all recorded.
Yeah, why
That-
guys,
that's why
you don't
I
know
should
this
take the
still,
They're all
please.
recorded.
Please
and they
know
played
this.
them today. But all right, let's see. It's almost time to wrap up. Let me get a couple of comments here. Oh, here's a good one from Lauren. Vinny, that's why you're the best. Oh, Claudia, great analysis, Vinny.
We know how to get on air.
He has his own bots.
Exactly.
Hey, I want some airtime. Vinny's the best. Vinny is unbelievable. You know how good Vinny is?
Come on,
There's
Latonia,
nobody
say
like
something
Vinny.
nice about Randy and Meg.
All right, I'm just checking. I just want to make sure we didn't miss any. Tracy, and this again gets to it, but he killed her, all caps. Why no remorse? And that's a real, that's a part that's missing here, right? From an
Didn't he-
accident, wouldn't it be, oh my, some sort of
Exactly.
remorse, like I can't believe I shot and killed you, right? I haven't seen or heard any testimony like that.
What killed me, for me to make this decision about this case, is when they pull up at that valet and they get this ratty wheelchair and they show Diane, because you show it with it being blurred out. But when you saw it in court, you saw her and she was completely disrespected. Her body was callously disregarded. They threw her on that because it was the valet doing it, not medical personnel, because they hadn't called ahead. But what really hurt me is seeing this person who had been shot. And if you were upset about having shot your wife, you never in a million years would have allowed her to be mistreated, pulled out. We all watch Grey's Anatomy, all these TV shows. You can't move somebody until medical personnel come. Yes, you got her to the hospital, sure, you can use that argument. Killed me. When you see her, the way she's like laying like that, killed me for the entire case. That's Tex McIver. There is no remorse.
There was remorse in the courtroom. He shed some tears in the courtroom.
Sure.
You know. Who
Crocodile
knows?
tears.
But also, he's a demure kind of guy, and that's just, he doesn't do it in public. So who knows how he expresses remorse. Yeah, it would have been better if there was video of him breaking down sobbing for hours. That would have been better for him. Sure.
I would like to hear him screaming, I can't believe I shot and killed you, something like that.
Yes.
Oh, I can't believe I did this. But there's not that remorse in that. It was an accident. The gun went off. There's no, acceptance of responsibility and remorse.
But still you have the
We'll see.
guns out for Black Lives Matters. I mean, that sums him up.
All right, folks.
You had a better day?
Oh, yes.
People ask for that.
Let me distribute. Thank you. That's why we have a great producer. So, tell me, based on the testimony, we had the surgeon testify today, we had Bill Crane testify, we had those jailhouse phone calls today as well. We also had the search for the second will, and they had to testify. We looked, but we could not find that second will. Who had a better day today, prosecution or defense?
If you can believe, I'm actually going to say the defense, because
Woo!
they managed to score some real points today, legitimate points. The will issue is out the window now. That's pretty big success, defense.
All right, prosecution or defense?
Start off prosecution, but it went to defense.
Look at that.
Because we're on the prosecution's case. So if the prosecution doesn't have a great day, if they have a mediocre day, the day goes to the defense.
Now, I'll vote too. And I'm going to say defense. And I'm going to say it for the same reason I just said, is that Tex McIver's story has now been put in front of this jury again. And today he got to tell the jury that he's giving the ranch to Austin in the prosecution case without being cross-examined. To me, this is prosecutorial insanity. You've got to force their hand. He shot and killed her. You could have proven that easily without any of his statements, and all those statements I believe are somewhat self-serving, which would make them not admissible in my eyes, but prosecutors went in a different direction. So I think it was a decent day for defense, and that second will I think is huge as well, because that's the whole financial motive here.
Well, you bring it up, you better prove it.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
Second will, and Austin gets the ranch. All right, folks, thanks so much for all your great comments and for watching. We're here every night at 7:30, although Wednesday we may have a special broadcast for you on Facebook live at 5 at the courthouse. Live at 5 at the courthouse. As soon as the testimony ends, we're going to run out of the courthouse and we'll be outside on the courthouse steps telling you about what happened inside and getting your questions and comments as well. That is Wednesday, but every other day we're here at 7:30 taking your questions and your comments. Don't forget tonight on the late feed at 11, we'll put it all together with some analysis and highlights from trial today, and then we'll be back streaming. You can find the stream on my Facebook page, Vinny Politan 11 Live, or on 11live.com or 11 Live YouTube page, or again, Vinny Politan 11 Live. That starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. We're getting close to a verdict, so we're almost there. They're getting ready to wrap things up. We will see you at 11 o'clock on the late feed, and tomorrow night right here at 7:30 on Facebook Live.